Hey folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name's Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It is 1:30 Central Texas time, December 11th. Haven't been back on the crypto stream in quite some time. I want to welcome you back. It is an exciting time. We're talking about riding the bull today. You know that we're coming up on a altcoin bull run, which you're probably aware of. And the reason you tune in here, I would assume, is because you want to be you're probably somebody who is not a complete degenerate, right? That's kind of the whole degen play is. I think it'll end up coming to an end, but there are always folks who are there just for a quick buck, and I assume the reason that you're here is because there's something more significant going on. And I'll just say this: we saw a 6% increase in the market today. Bitcoin jumped, Ethereum jumped, things are jumping. Market cap is up to 3.76 trillion. I think we hit 2.5 or in change last bull run. This is a big deal, but I want to point out something to you that is a surprise to me. But these are indicators that I don't think most people are picking up because I would consider myself to be pretty kind of a normal person. I pay attention to kind of normal things, and I think a lot of people within our community are really, really deep into the technical details of how all of these intricate web of liquidity, for example, work. And that's good. We need folks like that are really smart. But at the end of the day, I keep it really simple. And I think probably most of the folks that watch this stream, the regulars at least, are kind of like old man crypto heartbeat. I just, in many cases, last go around, last bull run, I kind of forgot about things and then saw, hey, these things are really going up. It's not really the effort or any energy that I put into it that made it do something or not. These things work in cycles. And so in some cases, a lot of people that you probably got into crypto and kind of forgot you were in it. A lot of people with regular jobs and regular lives and families and issues like that, they hear from a friend, oh, you're in crypto. Hey, what should I do? And, what are you in? And they get into something and they kind of forget that they have it. What's amazing is the mainstream of people, the adoption of crypto it's moving up into the right. It's becoming more mainstream. This is the topic. And of course, with the election, we're not to January 20th yet. And so a lot of people, there's so much content out there. You're so excited about things moving up. I kind of want to bring you back to the baseline. Where are we in this bull run? Is it just beginning? Are we at the middle? Are we at the end? I'm going to give you my opinion of that. I'm going to talk to you about some things that I think are pretty interesting. And you know what? We'll have a little bit of a good time. If you're new, let us know that you're here in the chat. I see some really great folks here. Sam Kemp, we're definitely with you in your wife's surgery there. Thanks for checking in, though. I appreciate it. He's always commenting kind of first in everything. Anders, what's going on? Francis Paul is here. And then that guy, Andy F., whoever he is, what's up? NT Fryer, good to see you. DGen Dougie Peach, what's up, my man? Good to see you. True Blue, good day. Hey, Matt, any updates on Texan Token and the bull run not being left in the wild? Looking forward to some long stakes maturing in the future. Actually, I will talk about that in general. And that's I guess part of the reason I'm doing this stream in a way. Everybody wants somebody else to do the work for them. And when I look at things like the Texan Token, I mean, we did that as a service to the Texas nationalist movement. And if you think about it, we did this work. We promoted them raising money. That's what I've done all my career, is help nonprofit organizations raise capital. And so you gave money to the Texas nationalist movement, and we distributed token to people who gave. And that's it. And when you think about it, who should care about the Texan Token? That's a good question. Who should care? I certainly care about it. But at the end of the day, this really illustrates, I think, a really good point. And that is, at the end of the day, what drives the price? What drives the price? What we all want. More buyers and sellers. What does that mean? That new money has to come in and buy the token, right? And of course, this narrative is everywhere, right? We know that, but we want someone else to do it, right? We want some like super billionaire. We want Richard Hart to take SAC funds. We want someone else to do it, right? Well, I have a feeling somebody else will do it. So just keep that in mind. At the end of the day, the price moves based on more buyers and sellers. So more economic energy comes in. Well, what's the narrative? And at the end of the day, that's it. What's interesting, though, is the chart, right? Because the chart is global in DeFi, you can look on, Dex Screener and other places, and you can see what's moving. And there's people who kind of scan the entire landscape. And we saw this recently with a big dump on Texan Token, is that people are paying attention to just what's moving, right? Arbitrage is the key to a lot of people within within the crypto market, right? They're looking for volatility. And what's interesting about it is, community is the core, right? Metcalfe's law. If you know about Metcalfe's law, which I think you might know about, let's do this. Let's share this screen. Got a little window here. Let's see where we are. Metcalfe's law. There we go. So for those of you who don't know, Metcalfe's law, the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of users. Okay. And if each node connects to all the existing nodes, right, this is this growth. And you kind of see this hockey stick, which we see, right? So Metcalfe's law is the core to this. So what is the key to the value within a community? Well, at the end of the day, hang on, let me see here. I might be breaking up here. The key is the number of users. Well, what do users bring with them? They bring value. If I'm having issues with this stream, let me know on here. I'm having issues. Looks like I'm locked up. Let me know if you see that same issue in the chat, if you would. Degen, Dougie Peach, or others. I'll just keep going, and hopefully you can hear me. Let's see here. All right, let's see if we're having an issue. Looks like we're having an issue. All right, can you hear me still? Looks like you're frozen heartbeat. All right, can you guys hear me? Let me know. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear. Having some sort of issue. It doesn't look like it's bandwidth. It must be a camera issue. Let's see here. Start camera. Yeah, having some sort of issue here. I apologize for that, folks. Audio is fine. Okay, cool. I'm going to turn off the cam for a minute, and then we'll chat about this. Okay, so Metcalfe's law is what this is all about. And so at the end of the day, no matter how you connect, different coins of different types and different liquidity, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're trying to create you're trying to create some attention, right? Because at the end of the day, all that matters when it comes to price is more money comes in than goes out. I mean, it's super, super simple. Basic supply and demand. More buyers than sellers, the price goes up, period. So you use all kinds of different techniques to get people's attention to say, hey, you could stake this. And if you stake it, you're going to get some sort of reward. And that means, well, the chances are people will lock themselves up and they won't sell. And then you'll have better buy pressure. And if you're in the cycle, the price goes up, right? At the end of the day, though, in crypto, because it's primarily speculative or has been, it drops 85, 95%, in the bear markets. Okay. So that's changing. And so I want to make a case to you that is changing. And there are kind of indicators that it is changing. Why are we in a bull run? And what are the key things to this? Well, we know because of the election. That's a topic that you're probably very familiar with. That's had an impact, a significant impact. And we don't even have the new administration in, right? So obviously regulatory is going to change, right? Gary Gensler's going to be gone. Obviously, there's going to be a new sheriff in town. There's probably going to be practical regulations. That's good news. Some of that stuff is priced in. But let me show you this. I think this is a really interesting point here. I'm going to share my screen. If you have not seen this, I think this is really, really key. So Tucker Carlson, who is obviously a very, very influential, and because of X platform, has gone international. And there's a lot of people. I mean, he's got a lot of followers. He's got a lot of views. And Roger Ver was on Tucker Carlson because he's facing life in prison, 109 years for promoting cryptocurrency. Then they're getting him on some sort of tax issue, even though he didn't live in the country. He had renounced his citizenship for 10, 12 years. And they basically are holding him in Spain. And Spain is looking to extradite him to the United States to face these charges. And these charges hold 109 years penalty. And of course, if you know the story, and if you watch this, which I highly recommend you do, what you don't realize is that when you're on the inside and you understand crypto and you're following all this content, and it's most of the people that are probably watching this stream, you're not a normal person, right? You're not a person who doesn't really know. You've heard about crypto and you knew about that FTX guy and you don't pay attention to it because you got a regular job and you do regular things and you got a family or whatever it may be. Well, when things come out on what I would consider a more mainstream, really popular, like Tucker going, "Hey, this is a crazy story," and he shines a light on this thing. This is significant because regular people, and of course, Tucker's kind of on the right. There's a really large group of people that get introduced to this. They didn't know this. They had no idea that Roger Ver was in this situation. And of course, he's written a book, Hijacking a Bitcoin. But this story and watching this video, I think for anyone who's in crypto needs to be aware of it. Roger Ver is one of the guys like Richard Hart, right? At those very beginning times, libertarian guy who really appreciated and was excited about what Bitcoin could mean. And of course, he's obviously, like Whitney Webb and others, are basically blowing the whistle and saying, "Hey, you're being controlled. You are being controlled by this. You're being controlled by this essentially this hijacking of Bitcoin." And I think it was Axis Alive who said, we're going to have to sacrifice Bitcoin on the altar of decentralization, and literally just have to recognize it's not going to be used as digital cash. And this has been strategic, and so it goes way back to 3-letter agencies, and it's been going on a long time. And there's tracking and tracing and all this kind of stuff. So the challenge here is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What is it that we can do? If you're kind of that kind of libertarian, freedom, sovereignty, which I would assume you are, right? From that perspective, what is it that you can do? And the point that I want to make to everyone is that we have this opportunity within the Pulse Chain ecosystem because of the attitude and the ethos of Richard Hart. Is we have the opportunity to build an alternative financial system, one that actually functions the way that was always dreamed to be. But when I look across the landscape and look at who's leading, and I thought Charles Hoskinson with Cardano was going to be one of the guys, but he's buddying up to the government, and so I don't think that it's really Richard Hart standing alone. And I think what's going to end up happening is that's where the ultimate glory is going to come, because the system's going to fail, right? Because what they're doing is they're capturing it. And that's the challenge. And I highly recommend you listen to this interview with Tucker Carlson and Roger Ver. It's probably the biggest platform that Roger's had. And there's a lot of people that follow and watch Tucker Carlson who literally have no clue what's going on with Bitcoin. And so this is an indicator, a leading indicator of something that is to come. But I think it's important for us to talk about the actual the cycle. I'm going to give you my opinion on where things are. So let's jump back into the chat. I'm going to try my camera again, see if it works here. Hang on a second. All right, we'll see if it works now. But good question about True Blue asking about Texan. At the end of the day, people are going to have to take responsibility for things. And one of the things I think people always expect is, hey, because you did this launch or whatever, that you're responsible for. It's just like Richard Hart saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do, this for me. And he says it all the time. I don't work for you. But I do care about the community. And I recognize that at the end of the day, whether it's Texan, Ophir, Pulse Chain, whatever it may be, there's a community of people that are served by having their own store of value. And to me, the long term of this is you're essentially storing something that later in the future is going to be very relevant. So I'm going to make this point to you right now. There's going to be a future, my friends, when you will not go to fiat. Okay? You will not go to fiat currency. And what I mean by that, it'll all be digital. And of course, the degenerate play is this era, right? There was an era of NFTs, right? There are different eras in crypto, and we're moving into one that is going to be this transition to real world assets. Real world value is coming into crypto, and it's what we always wanted. We wanted this mainstream thing. But what happens when real value comes into crypto? Well, we don't have the same kind of volatility, and we don't have the same kind of, huge bull runs and thousands or 10,000 X's of returns. And I would say that that's actually a really good thing. But what's going to come out of it is the fact that you're going to be in a situation one day where I think the key indicator is going to be Amazon or Walmart.com or really, really big retailers where you can get goods and services are going to accept a stable coin, right? It might be USDC, it might be USDT. Now those, I wouldn't sit in those, But if you think about it, the stable coin itself, this interoperability, cross-chain swapping of value, once the retailers, where you get a majority of the stuff that you need, and I would say Amazon's pretty much won that game, at least in the States, is that right now that's the challenge. Why do you have to go to fiat? You have to go to fiat because you got to pay other bills, you got to do things in the world, and it requires that. But there's going to be a time in the future where you do not have to do that. So anything that you've put into whatever community you're in is ultimately going to be stored, and that value is going to be interoperable, meaning you're going to be able to use it for something. And of course, every day that goes by, there's more applications for actually using digital currency. But in this case, right now, it's a digital asset, and soon, at some point, it's going to be, swappable. We're seeing this, right? XRP just came out with their stablecoin. Got approval for that. I mean, this is Trump and his group, I think, are doing a stablecoin. USDC. I mean, all of these people are battling for stablecoins. So if you back out and you look at this system, the capture of Bitcoin is the capture of the tracking and tracing of cryptocurrency. And so when I see this is a huge threat to not only freedom of speech, but ultimately to privacy. And so if we're going to have a place where you can do transactions without people getting into your business, they are watching everything and tracking and tracing everything, you have to be on a separate financial system that protects those things, right? Well, what would it require? Well, it would require a truly decentralized layer one solution. What does that mean? Well, that means the nodes are everywhere, right? They're not just at AWS, right? The other thing is you don't want to have essentially the people in control of the majority of the supply to be people are going to dump on you. And so an example of that would be XRP. So if you've got hedge funds, and the whole reason that they're in this is to get out of it, right? The whole point is an investment that gives them a return. You've got this constant nagging feeling that somebody's going to dump on your head. What's interesting about Bitcoin is really Satoshi disappearing and, 1 million Bitcoin being locked up and held. That's interesting. Well, what did Richard Hart do when he created Hex? The whole OA concept is, even though, we talk about decentralization, actually the benefit is the centralization if you trust the party that holds the token, right? Always a buyer, never a seller. That concept, right? The OA, not selling a single hex. What benefit does that provide you? Well, you do have to consider, well, is this a benevolent king or not? Is Richard Hart a benevolent king? Is he somebody that's going to actually be responsible with the power that he wields? And I think in any situation or circumstance, we end up seeing this play itself out, is that the nature and character of the ones who hold the control or the power, who are they? What makes them tick? How is it set up? And if you think about it, that's why the manipulation of the market is done by whales, because they're the ones with the majority of the money. And everybody is following and chasing that movement of money. What I think is interesting is that what Richard Hart's ethos, at least what he says and what I've talked to him about when I interviewed him twice, is that it was about the community, that it was actually about making people's lives better. And I think a lot of people kind of see the surface of that and they say, well, Richard Hart just wants me to get rich. No. This is way bigger than that. When he forked the Pulse chain and he came out with freedom of speech and freedom of movement for PulseX and was focused on these political things, what you realize is he's been thinking about these things since the beginning. And now with this whole narrative about the pegging of PDAI, we have this bigger story that's happening where you're seeing this vision, which was what he called a vertically aligned ecosystem. Well, what does it mean when you have a vertically aligned ecosystem? Well, you have a separate financial system. Are all the tools there? No, not yet. But we have to have that if we're going to have this future that has, freedom and privacy, and we're going to have a place to transact. But I think the encouraging thing for me, is, at least in this cycle, is the fact that whatever the narrative is and wherever you are, essentially, provided that you don't have people that have a ton of control that are trying to destroy you, right? Whales that are trying to dump on you, VC firms, whatever they may be. If the people that hold the supply are benevolent, you have an opportunity to win together. And that's been kind of the ethos of Richard Hart, not to just stomp on your neck and take advantage of you. But here's the thing, without new money coming in, you're just shifting around the other stuff you have. So there's a lot of people right now who are building all kinds of projects in the Pulse chain, and that's a good thing. But we hear all of this talk of connecting this with this, with this, with this, right? Liquidity webs. Well, I think the majority of regular people who have regular jobs who don't watch a bunch of content all the time, it's really complicated for them to understand that. They understand number go up, they understand the basic kind of like, hey, you bought it low and you sold it high. But at the end of the day, whether or not you're connected in liquidity to this or that, or buy and burns and everything, at the end of the day, there's no burn unless there's a buy. So new money has to come in, right? And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to talk about a narrative, and story drives everything. Even though we would agree that gold has value, you cannot eat it. It is probably the most, durable narrative that's been out there as it relates to a proxy for human labor, because that's all it is. Because nothing exists when it comes to value outside of goods and services. Because if you think about it, let's say you're in prison, there's not an economic system in prison. Oh, yes, there is. It's the commissary. What do people do? What are they trading? It's like cigarettes and I think it's ramen noodles, right? There's a number of things that bartering becomes a form of transaction. It's always going to come back to that. But at the end of the day, the only thing that exists in value is goods and services. And everything else is a proxy for that, because goods and services are created by human labor. And so when you start to understand that, you start to realize, okay, none of this stuff works. The rising tide doesn't rise unless you have new money coming in. And so you want to be as clear and you want to have as much appeal as you can. And that's why people are encouraged to build on the Pulse chain, is because everybody brings in a different type of person. Why do I do this, right? Gray hair guy, with a jacket on, right? There's people that do TA. There's people that do different things, because I believe that the strongest narrative is not just get rich. If it's fine, it attracts a certain group of people, but it's kind of like the whole Richard Torking stuff, right? With all the expensive things that he purchased, it has an audience. But at the end of the day, this thing isn't moving to more degenerate. It's moving actually to more stable. It's moving to more practical. It's moving to more real value, real world assets backing things. Well, what is that narrative? I think that narrative is an alternative financial system. We need to build one that is truly decentralized. We have to actually protect the true tenets of DeFi. Well, what are those? They were outlined in this idea of Bitcoin and its origin. But this is such a unique time in history, because never before has this financial power and political power been separated. And so now we have the ability as a community of people to say, hey, no, we need to protect and preserve this thing. Well, it takes leadership. And that's why I find Richard Hart's ethos and his mission and his vision that he's had long before a lot of folks even realized it, that building a separate, standalone, truly decentralized, vertically aligned ecosystem is important. So why is PDAI so important? PDAI is important because you need to have that stable coin on the Pulse chain. And this brilliant move, if it truly is him, to fill out ultimately this vertically aligned ecosystem where you can do transactions not on a government system, right? A central banking system. But all of these other people who are looking at opportunities because Trump won or whatever it may be, they're literally going to have government hooks in them. The beauty of having a separate system is that it can operate completely separate from, these groups. And of course, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, you would say, well, Babylon's going to burn in an hour. People literally stand off and they literally say, oh my gosh, we used to buy and sell there. We used to do, buy the most amazing things and sell the most amazing things. And it literally burns in an hour. And you're like, well, there's got to be a solution. There's got to be another system that we can transact on. And everybody thinks that they're doing that. Everybody thinks they're in DeFi. But, you start doing deals with MasterCard, or you're doing deals with the Federal Reserve. You don't realize how many barbs are in there. So guys like Roger Ver and reporters like Whitney Webb are saying, look, Peter Thiel isn't just out for you. And the guys in MicroStrategies and all of these people that are into Bitcoin now, no, it's not. It's been captured. And so that's why I believe what is happening within this Pulse chain is so significant, because it's far beyond just this token or that token or number go up or just this cycle. It's like, no, if we don't build this thing and if we don't preserve its true tenets, it will not exist. Because I don't see anyone out there who is trying to build something that is essentially a standalone alternative financial system. And it's just, there's some basic things you have to have. You have to have privacy. You have to have a layer one. It has to be properly decentralized. You have to have a stable coin. And so right now, it's not, that narrative's like, well, I could go over to Solana. I could do this. I'm chasing these memes. I think the long-term future, and I think why I kind of commented about that topic about the Texan token is I know some people, and you probably know some people, and I think there's some people who watch this, and I think that there's some people who look into the tea leaves of Richard Heart and realize there is a time coming, and it's probably within the next 10 months, where a lot of value is going to come into the Pulse chain. And when I mean value, I mean hundreds of millions of new dollars are going to come in. Now, some of you are probably like, well, what about the SAC funds? Are those going to come in at some point in time? Well, yeah, there was a strategy. Why do you think Hex did a 10,000X? Do you think it just did it by accident? No, there's a whole methodology around how you manage liquidity. And for the most part, Richard was holding the liquidity pool and the resource, right? It's very difficult to make money if you don't have money. And I think a lot of people, including me, are thinking, well, you just create a coin and people are just going to come to it, right? Well, no, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different tokens. It's all about the liquidity. It's all about the value. And so real people with real money don't have trust in this meme coin land DeFi degenerate thing. Actually, DeFi is extremely small. What do people want? Well, they want, one, they want to know it's backed by something. And two, if they get in, they want to know they can get out. Right? Why would you bring, let's say you had $100 million. Why would you bring $100 million into the Pulse chain if you couldn't get it out ever? Well, it'd be nice to look on paper that you've got $1 billion. But at the end of the day, you can't get it out. Right? So locked liquidity, significant players coming into this ecosystem. And I think that the long-term real glory that Richard seeks won't come in this cycle. I think some really amazing things are going to happen here after January 20th. And as we see a lot of the changes that are going to be made from this administration, I think it's going to cascade across the world. I think we're going to see an amazing, amazing bull run. But I just encourage you to look at the chart. If you look at the chart and you go back to the last top, or you go back to 2018's top, and you look at the parabolic run, which was called the banana zone. So there's a guy named Raoul Pal. I don't know if you know Raoul Pal. He was with Goldman Sachs. He's on the crypto side of things now. I want to share with you the banana zone. So this is a chart that Raoul Pal put together. And he talks about the banana zone. And this is the 4 cycles. These are the 4 cycles that we've seen in crypto. So we've got this 2011, 2012 top to ultimately the 2018 top. Then we got 2021, and then we're here on the 4th year, right? So we're our 4th cycle. Okay, so this is what's happened. Well, if you look at this, the first one went to $100, then $5,000, then 69, I think was the top. And Richard Heart has made a call on Bitcoin. So this is the Bitcoin price at $241,500. And he's already made that call. That's pretty amazing, right? Before it even starts, probably just did simple math and said, well, this is how it happened the last 3 times. This is where it's going to be. So where are we at today? We're over $100,000. I think we're like $100,500. Okay. So it's broken this 100,000 mark. It's going to sit here for a while. Let's say you literally knew for certain that it was going to top out at 241.5. That's Bitcoin. And if you look at the history of it, that's the least amount of benefit you're going to get. So that's what, that's going to be a double and a half, right? 1.5x. What's it going to look like for the Pulse chain? It's below SAC price, right? And this narrative, I think, that's better isn't faster, cheaper, world's biggest airdrop. Those are good. I think it's really who is going to actually defend and who's going to, defend your freedom and sovereignty. That's what I think it's about. That narrative is the ultimate winning narrative because crypto is literally going to be captured, right? There's these folks that obviously, and Trump's going to be one of them too. And not that I'm not promoting that. I think it's going to be really good for crypto. But here's the thing, you know, US dollar hegemony is something that wants to be defended, right, against BRICS and others. This is separate, folks. This is separate. This isn't just like BRICS versus US dollar. This is a separate financial system. And, when you threaten that, what happens? Well, Bitcoin kind of threatened that at the beginning. Well, it's basically taken over. And so this transition that is going to happen at some point, will that happen at the top here? Will that happen in the next 10 months where, a big retailer like, I don't know, Walmart.com or Amazon.com says, we're going to accept USDC. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's swappable, let's say on Uniswap, as long as you can swap for it, the value that you're retaining in crypto and the run that it takes actually buys you goods and services. Otherwise, you're going to have to go to fiat. But this future where you wanted to have an anonymity, you wanted to have privacy, you wanted to do transactions without somebody, in a government wallet and a social credit score and somebody tracking and tracing your every single move and saying, oh, you shouldn't buy that, or your house is too big, or you shouldn't have more than one car, or you should, not own anything and be happy. That's a real threat here, folks. But if there's no alternative to go to, if there's no place that you can transact, if there's no place that you can have privacy, this is the only place that people are defending that. And in my opinion, we should be screaming that from the rooftops. That's the actual lasting long-term narrative. But it'll like almost be overnight, because if Babylon burns, right? If we see this commercial Babylon burn, if this market, this system crashes, which may not happen for a while, but it's on an unsustainable path, that's the time that this alternative is going to shine. But people that understand this early are going to realize, hold on, where am I putting my effort and energy? Well, into something that's going to outlast this existing system when it fails. There's only one that I see that's going to do that. If, in fact, Richard can accomplish the vision that he's communicated pretty much since the beginning. And of course, the more he sees this thing getting rickety, the current financial system, the more he's going to be encouraged to fortify this current one, right? So these things don't happen overnight, but if you see what I see, it's hopeful, right? That there could be a place where you could transact. And, we could get into this in more detail, but if you're somebody that's interested in the scriptures, I encourage you to take a look at Isaiah 55. And I'll leave it there. I won't go into that. I usually go into that on Fridays. But take a look at Isaiah 55. This is a future, right, that is possible. And one of the things about Richard Hart and his ethos and everything is that ultimately it's based on consideration from each other. So I showed you Metcalfe's Law. This communication network, right, the value of it's related to how it grows. Well, it grows based on narrative. And of course, that narrative is driven by things like up and to the right. But more importantly, we connect with one another and we're considerate and thoughtful of one another. Well, what's the leadership of Richard Hart? Well, he's been out of the streaming game for a long time. He's had the SEC case and all that stuff. I get it, right? But what's amazing is Richard's been an advocate for people, right? He has warned about so many of the scams. He's told you to get your coins off of centralized exchanges, not your keys, not your coins, all of these things over time that have shown a heart for others. He changed his name to Richard Hart, for goodness sake, right? This idea that what is actually right, what is better for making the world a better place? Well, I would submit to you, it's the consideration of what's best for everyone, not just what's best for me. And of course, a lot of the degen plays is, I don't care if you lose, right? People get all upset about rug pulls, and some people don't care at all. They're like, as long as I win, it doesn't matter. You can lose. Well, no. This future of this economic system, we have to understand that we're kind of, we have the same fate in a way. And so this consideration for one another is something that Richard has. Well, what if you had an alternative financial system where people were thoughtful of each other and you had all of these basic tools? Well, that might actually be a place where you have more confidence. And the more confidence you have, the more resources you have. Because I believe that ultimately the creation of all this stuff is actually abundant. There is enough to go around. There's more than enough. The problem is there are people who hoard and lord, right? This is the whole idea. Why do we fight these wars and take out people? I mean, get me started on, toppling the Syrian regime. I mean, this is what we do. We go kill people and take their stuff and hoard it. This is about resources. This is about, domination. It's about extraction. It is about literally enslaving people. And this is a hope. There's a hope in this, at least economically. Now, there's a whole spiritual hope that's separate, but this is important. And to see someone like Richard Hart going, you know what, we need to really defend this. I just hope people see that. I see it so clearly that if we don't defend this thing and if we don't encourage what Richard's only he can do, and he's made some incredible progress and has some incredible resource, it's like, all right, I'm looking forward to. And so I'm going to talk about the timeline now. Where are we? I believe that as soon as Trump gets into office, what we're going to see is we're going to see a lot of these cases dropped. I think we're going to see pardons of some of these crypto folks that have been, I think Roger Ver will get out. I don't think that, I think all of these things, there's a number of people that are in jail. I think what we're going to see is a lot of these cases being dropped, and we're going to see some very practical regulation. And that regulation is going to be very, very clear. I think, in my opinion, crypto is going to be seen as a commodity. I think it's, it's not going to be seen, and there's going to be real definitions of what is a security. Okay. And I think we're going to reset that system. There's going to be incentives to build here in the States. And I think we're going to see the impact of that. Well, a lot more money is going to come into Bitcoin. So we're at 100,000. Richard thinks it'll be at 241.5. Okay, let's say that's the top, 250,000. We got a long way to go. But things cycle from Bitcoin into Ethereum into the altcoins. Well, where are we? Well, in my opinion, the top, if you look at the Ethereum chart and you kind of look at, right, the top to the all-time high and then the all-time high to the top again. Well, it's a window of about 3 years. Well, where does that put us? That puts us about October, November, the end of the year next year. So 2025, end of 2025. Now, will it be extended? I don't know. But there's a lot of ground here. Well, if you look at the last real big altcoin summer, the parabolic time. So when I literally got into Hex 2 days before Big Payday, it took a while before it went parabolic. But if you actually look at kind of 1 penny to 52 cents, it was 5 months. That's it. It was the last 5 months to the top. Of course, we had that whole Charlie 19 thing. But that's how I look at it, very, very simply. A bunch of new money's got to come in, right? And it looks like it probably will. Why? Because confidence is going to be retained. The US market is going to be, you're going to be encouraged. There may be actually some tax benefits. There are going to be all kinds of things that are going to stimulate growth in this sector. We're going to see tons more money come in. The asset class is going to grow, and that rising tide is going to ultimately get itself into the Richard Hart ecosystem. The more that we see Richard come back and lead, and that leadership, I think, is going to come from this very core point of, hey, guys, we got to defend this thing. This is true DeFi. This is a real financial system. This is what we're building. And we actually hear from him the actual vision, right? He did these 8-hour streams in the past. I hope that we see him back. We need his leadership because he's wicked smart. He sees this, but it's not like it's a new idea. He's been talking about this for a long time. But folks, this is all about to change here when we get a new administration. And we're going to have a period of time, right? This next 4 years that is going to be probably pretty incredible for crypto. But if you look at the cycles, we probably only have, in my opinion, less than 12 months till a top. Well, what are we doing in that time, right? Is it the beginning of, PDAI? And I think, I don't know where I stand on that. I'm not going to even recommend it or anything, but I do understand the value of needing a stable coin on the Pulse chain. But I think if we're really going to see the long term of this, we're going to have to bring actual real value into the Pulse chain, like real value. Okay, so that may be the tokenization of real world assets. That may be actually owning real world assets. Well, that's what I'm focusing on. Because at the end of the day, how do big players come into the Pulse chain, right? To jump into random coins that have very thin liquidity and the potential of, people, rugging them and they can't get out? No, it's going to have thick liquidity that's locked. They're going to have confidence that when they get in, they can get out. And I think we're going to see that. Will it happen in this cycle? Maybe, maybe not. But that's the future of this because it's going to ultimately go mainstream. You won't have to go to fiat, and that's when everything will change. And so it won't be this conversation of, this meme coin or that meme coin, right? It just won't be that narrative anymore. It's going to be about where's the real value? Where are the real investors? Where is the real money? And that's where things will go. Well, why are people then creating these giant liquidity webs? Because a rising tide lifts all boats. If you look at, there's a number of these projects, right, that are taking, I don't know, 10 to 50 different coins, and they're taking all of that supply and they're interlocking it, right? So that in the LP positions, everything is connected to everything else. Well, why? At the end of the day, it all goes back to what is considered value. Well, what is that? Bridged over assets, right? So Pulse, that is, let's say, a Pulse ETH pair, right? Something that's been bridged over. Now there's kind of an inherent value of Pulse because of what it inherited from the fork. But at the end of the day, these liquidity webs are banking on the fact that somebody's going to bring value in, right? So that no matter what happens, it rises, right? Because otherwise, if there's no new money that comes in, we're just kind of rearranging these deck chairs, right? Just the existing money gets rearranged and it's all connected. But the cool thing about liquidity webs is that you're accessing other people's Pulse or what is recognized as value. Because right now, everybody wants to go to Pulse, then to DAI, and then out to Ethereum if they need to get out, for the most part, to go to fiat. But there's some big moments that are coming, right? If in fact, big retailers take a stable coin and you can swap directly to it, that means you can use anything you've got. You swap to the stable, you buy the stuff on Amazon. That's real value. Because at the end of the day, why are you doing this? You're doing this so you make money. But right now, that money's got to go through a bridge, right? It's got to go through Coinbase. It's got to go to, and not everybody uses it that way, but for the most part. But the hope is we're going to see a moment when you don't have to do a jack. I mean, you literally swap and boom, you've purchased something at a major retailer. And that shift is going to happen. Could it happen this cycle? It could. But that's when everything changes. But that's where I think the opportunity is, that we're approaching it. Is it this cycle or next cycle when all of that comes to pass? Well, the threat of it is this whole governmental, they're worried that they're losing control. Well, guys like Peter Thiel, and I'm sure Saylor and some of these other people, they're being strategic. They're like, instead of the government and instead of like the guys at Jekyll Island, making the Federal Reserve, company to take the money, now you've got guys like Peter Thiel, and you've got people that are literally saying, "Hey, we're just the new Jekyll Island guys," the first name club they called them. It's just another version. It's a corporate version of this that they're saying, "No, we want a piece of all of this action. We want to control this financial system." And so this era of the Fed kind of dies, in this era of these Bitcoin guys, controlling crypto. That's the problem, because ultimately there will be some sort of digital dollar, and it'll be a de facto CBDC. I mean, you never know with Brian Armstrong and Coinbase and Circle and all those people buddying up to the government. I can see them making a deal where USDC, even though it's not a CBDC, it's not a central bank digital currency, becomes the de facto. It's still a problem, right? Because it's centralized control and it's US dollar backed. We need to have an alternative to that. That's the whole point. And so at the end of the day, there's so much more at stake here. I mean, if it's not obvious to you, you're either just when Lamboing it, right? Like, hopefully practical, regular people who create value in their regular everyday lives, that understand that there's just some basic things of value in this world and it's created by human labor. You can't fake it, right? You can't fake it. It is what it is, right? So you can play games, you can encourage people to get in, and you can sell on their heads, right? This whole speculative crypto thing, it is just abstracted stealing. We just get other dumber people to come in later and bring their money in, and then we sell on them, and they have the hopes that it's going higher, and when we know that the party is over. That's not the way you build something of real value. That's how you take advantage of people. I think Richard Heart, and I want to believe that the Pulse Chain ecosystem is one that actually builds a sustainable and truly valuable alternative financial system. And the only way we do that is together in community. So we need real leadership, and I'm excited. I believe SEC thing goes away, and we're going to see that first interview, Richard Hart back, maybe in a black T-shirt, right? That's what I hope. Riding a bull, right? No, we'll see him back, and we'll see humble Richard, as he calls himself now, and we'll see him really share, hey guys, here's what it is. This is what we're doing together. You see a guy like Charlton Hoskinson, he comes in, sunny Colorado, sometimes sunny, it's nerdy as all get out. Richard Hart is so much more cool than he is, and he understands marketing, but we're going to see him back. And imagine this, back on a schedule of, hey guys, let me share with you what we're doing. He had a lot of vision. In the last bull run, he talked about creating his own country. I mean, this guy is got a vision for this future. And I really, truly believe that he is at least considering you and me in the process, because he recognizes that. He said it to me, literally, when I spoke to him, he said, they can't find things for me to buy. I've bought everything, meaning like Louis Vuitton and all these expensive things. He's like, I've bought everything. And of course, you could just hear the emptiness in that. He said in the green room before we went on, he says, I don't even like buying bottled water. Like, Richard actually is a pretty frugal person in general. You saw that, I think, when you saw him go to his mom's house and put in the bidet. She had gotten sick and he was helping her out. But folks, this is why you need someone like that. It's like, these things don't just, poof into existence. They take leadership. They take someone with some vision stepping out. And this whole kind of hex pulse chain ecosystem is way bigger than just 10,000X and When Lambo and Get Yours. No, there's a bigger story here. And, last bull run, it was vertically aligned ecosystem. I was really intrigued by that. But now after, freedom of speech and freedom of movement, and because of all of the censorship and everything that he saw in advance, now we see this future and we go, hold on a second. They're coming after us. There's a future where literally everything you do is going to be monitored, tracked, and traced. You're going to be in a government wallet. It's the only way you're going to get the stimulus money from the next, lockdown or whatever it is. Do you want to just be like, well, I guess we're just at the mercy of this new system, and our new slave master is Peter Thiel? It's just a corporate master now. That's why I encourage you to look at Isaiah 55. Come, all you are thirsty, come, drink from the waters. You're going to buy and sell without fear and without longing. Why? Because we together in community, making decisions together and having leadership like a Richard Hart saying, hey, here are the fundamental things that we need in order to have a truly alternative financial system. We need privacy. We need stable coins. We need a layer one. We need stores of value. We need all of these other tools. Well, it's going to get there. But it won't get there by compromising to kind of these corporate overlords or to governments or anything, just because we can make a buck or because we can, get a good deal done or have something that's kind of shiny. No. And that's actually, it's really interesting, the decisions that Richard's made. It may have not been good in the short term, but it's like preserving it in the long term. And I see that. And that's obviously what I preach all the time on this channel is, you know what, at the end of the day, the majority of people don't have time to get into the weeds. And so you got to make things simple. You got to make things understandable. You've got to show them a future and the potential. And you need to be able to articulate the real ultimate benefits, because we do not sell features, folks. We do not sell features. You don't sell 38 point whatever percent APY. That's not what people buy. People buy freedom, sovereignty, right? People are buying something that has an impact on their actual lives that they consider to be valuable. And those are real benefits. Well, what do I think the benefit is? I'm staring in the face, literally, this new form of slavery. It's a financial and economic slavery. And it's one that is just digitized now. And if we follow this kind of track that it's been on, and we don't have, folks that are actually defending it with real true DeFi, meaning no counterparty risk, no middlemen, you hold your own keys to your own coins. And it'll be a small group of people, right? It's not going to be the majority, but it at least will be there when everything else collapses. And you'll be like, hey, that's where the glory is. And, this idea of saving people from themselves, well, it's kind of been the theme. But you know what's amazing? In the difficult times, I think about the story of Joseph, right? You've probably heard of the story of Joseph, right? His brothers basically sell him into slavery, right? Throw him in a pit, right? Sell him into slavery, right? And his father thinks he's dead. And literally Joseph ends up going into jail, right? Then he's able to interpret the dream of Pharaoh. He gets into Pharaoh's house. He literally becomes in charge, the number one guy, right? And there's 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And it's the preparation that's done in those 7 years of abundance. And then his brothers come back to him, right? And they don't recognize him, right? And what does he do? He shows them mercy. And I think what's amazing about this future is that I think that's what we're doing here. It's a modern day Joseph story, is that we're preparing for that 7 years of famine. And what happens is people will come from miles around going, hey, there's nothing left. And you say, oh, well, we've been preparing these last 7 years for this. That's how I feel. That's how I feel what we're doing. And that's what I feel is really kind of the calling on Richard Hart, is that you're building actually this quote unquote ark. It's kind of mixing my metaphors here biblically. But it is. It's like we're preparing for something. And people will scoff at it like, why are you building a boat? It's not raining. Well, no, we need to build something because we see what's off in the horizon. We know what's coming. And you're going to be really glad we built this. Now, right now, you're going to scoff and you're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's twerking and that's whatever. No, we're building the basis of the fundamentals of things that are actually going to be something that stands. Because, this is the human nature. But I think what's so amazing to me, and this is where I'll get kind of soft on you. At the core of this is, the golden rule, right? Treat others as you would like to be treated, right? What is the core of that, the golden rule? Well, it's this idea of considering others in addition to yourself. It's like actually considering other people, right? And if you think about what the core of kind of this pulse chain ecosystem is, right? The hexagons and all this stuff. I came in at a time and started going to these conferences and meeting with people. If you ever get a chance to go to a conference, I encourage you to do it. You meet these folks and you realize they're real people and you develop real relationships with them. And you're like, they got problems like everybody else has got. But what's really amazing about it is there's like no judgment. What I love about meeting with the folks in this community is there's one consistent thing. I feel like the hexagons and pulsicans, they've seen hard times. I would consider it to be kind of a blue collar group, although there are some white collar folks in there. But it's a group of people. It's almost like the meek will inherit the earth, right? I look at the hexagon community and I go, these are people who have seen hard times. They know what real work looks like and they want a shot, right? And they can relate, and that's that whole pirate theme, right? RG3 and that whole kind of thing. But a group of people said, hey, this could be a better life for us. And people call it a cult or call it all these different things. You know what? The basis of community is consideration and ultimately love. When you're thoughtful and considerate of other people and you're like worried, I don't want you to get wrecked. I don't want you to make stupid decisions. I don't want you to trade. I don't want you to, destroy yourself in this. Well, what's amazing is that a guy named John Nash won the Nobel Prize for that concept. Governing dynamics, right? He won the Nobel Prize in 1996 for game theory based on this idea of considering others in addition to yourself. It's used in negotiations and all sorts of things. It's the idea of win-win, right? Like if I consider you in addition to myself, we all win. Well, that's what a family does. Do people in the family just go their own way and do their own things and step on each other's heads? Well, in bad families, they do. But in good families, people are like, all right, I got to consider what's good for mom and dad and the kids and all that stuff. And you lead. That's the benefit of all of this. But for a lot of people, the degenerates in our community or in other communities, they don't want to know your face. They just want to take from you. And that's the problem, this whole thing, right? In a Christian perspective, you call this sin, right? Going your own way. You're not considerate of other people. You're not thoughtful of other people. You don't have compassion. You're not concerned. And so you just take. And that's the problem. And when I see Richard Hart, even though his ethos isn't like, he wrote a self-help book, right? He's got an ethos. It's one of consideration. And you see that in some of the old videos, how to give a good apology. That's some really good advice. Like how to forgive someone. Like these are really helpful things. But what's the basis of that? Well, things are better, not just when you're richer. Things are better when you have peace in your home. Things are better when you have good health. Things are better when you're not completely, and it's helpful to have money, but when you're not completely strung out. And so I see it really clearly. And I'm going to constantly remind you that there's more here at stake. However, where we are in the cycle, don't worry. Okay. All kinds of content out there's got you worried about this and worried about that. Do not worry. Now, are you going to catch some 10,000x because you got into the right thing at the right time? Don't worry about that. In general, this is going to move in the right direction. Now, you got to be in, right? This is a good time to be in. I mean, we're not even at SAC price. So, folks, if Bitcoin's going to be at 241.5, and we're not even to January 20th, we don't even know any of the impacts of this new administration. And we know that it's going to be crypto friendly. And we know that there's nothing the Federal Reserve can do except turn on the money printer. This is probably going to be a really, really good 2025 financially from an asset value perspective. The question is, what are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do with this newfound wealth? What are you going to do with these resources? Well, number one, you are going to recognize that when the party is over, it's over. When the top is in, the top is in. So I think people are going to be smarter about taking profits this time. However, I think what I want to see ultimately is deeper relationships being created in this community, because I think our greatest differentiator is our people. And so more meetups, any opportunity you can get to see people face to face, I'd encourage you to do that, right? Get together with folks, because, at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, what is it good? Be rich and no friends, right? And there's some really good people. Another note on getting together with Hexicans and people like that. When you do get together with them, what I love about it is people of every background, every race, every orientation, every possible flavor of people, and there's literally high-fiving all around. There's no issues whatsoever. It's not a class issue. It's not a race issue. It's not an orientation issue. It's none of that. It's not a religious issue. It's like people winning together. And I think that that's what's so cool about crypto itself. Because I think at the core, people want to belong. They want to fit in. They want to be a part of something bigger. We have the best narrative in crypto, and that is we are actually the defenders of DeFi. Because together we are building the alternative financial system. And so when Richard gets back, which I'm super excited to hear, and he does these maybe 4-hour streams, or maybe not, maybe he does them an hour or 2 hours, we get to hear the real strategy, because there's not all this pressure to try to get him, right? Like Roger Ver, they're wanting to put him in jail for 109 years. How ridiculous, for speaking out about promoting. It's crazy. Watch that video. But the same thing with the SEC and all this stuff with Richard. When all that stuff is lifted, you watch what happens. But remember, in the past, it's been about 5 months of parabolic run. So if this was going to go for another 10 months, we got 5 months to wait before parabolic move. So stop fretting. Stop fretting. I mean, make sure you get in. But it's not like, you get so nervous, you watch all these things. I'm not in this thing or that thing or the other thing. And there's a million things that are coming out. Well, what are the basic core things? Well, Pulse, PLS. It is the Ethereum of the Pulse chain, right? It is the gas token. It is fundamental. Pulse X, the biggest DEX, PLSX, those are basic core tokens. Inc, which is the incentive token, basic. Hex, basic. Everything else, right? Even Texan and Ophir. These are other places in which you can store value based on a certain community. One is churches in the Philippines, and the other is the Texas nationalist movement, and people care about Texas. These are narratives. These are communities. And people have to take responsibility for them, right? But at the end of the day, you're in a really good position. You're not only in a good position because you know about crypto in general, but most people that I talk to, regular, normal people in this world, they may have a Coinbase account and be like, what do you think of XRP? Right? That's a discussion. Hey, I've heard of Doge. Are you in Doge? Right? And there's no context for this. And so in a way, well, you share with people but ultimately we need to build this, and we need to support people like Richard who have a vision for something that's not centralized, that's not controlled by central banks, that actually gives us this freedom to transact, freedom of privacy, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, all that stuff. But that's the real stuff in life. That's the serious stuff. And I think you probably watch this channel because you're aware of that stuff too. 235 people are here on 3 platforms. I really appreciate it. It's a huge encouragement to me. I'm going to get into the chat and then answer questions and then let's sign off. But thank you so much for joining. Red Squirrel, oi, oi, good to see you. Gospel Preacher, what's up? DCR, good to see you. Nabil Steele. And for those of you who want to jump off, I usually go through the chat. So if you want, I'll give you a shout out. Jay Pond, what's going on? Good to see you. Yeah, we were frozen there for a while. Let's get through that stuff. Thanks, guys. You guys are awesome. The original Hex Swimmers here. Go Texan coin, ride that bull. Yeah. That's the other thing. Just keep in mind, a rising tide lifts all boats. Just remember that when it comes to all of these other tokens, a rising tide lifts all boats. There are good things about liquidity webs. There's good things about, but at the end of the day, if no one brings in new money, none of it goes up. Be patient, grasshopper. It's coming. This will lead to a pump in Bitcoin Cash, just like the SEC case did for XRP. Yeah, it's going to go away. Roof Dog, what's up, man? Welcome back. All these great people coming back. Isn't Amazon partnering with XRP and eventually accepting its form of payment? Well, it will be a stable coin, Gabriel. So that's the good thing. I don't care what it is. Here's the thing. What do I care about? I order something for a Christmas present. It gets delivered to my door. I store my value in a DeFi ecosystem like the Pulse Chain, right? But if I have to jump over because I need something, right? And I need to jump into a stable coin, I literally seconds swap, buy that thing, and it gets delivered to my door. But the huge event is when Amazon takes a stable coin. I don't care if it's XRPs, who it is, because you're going to have that cross-chain compatibility. That means that whatever value you put in and gained is actually preserved because you can swap. That's the beauty. I mean, the greatest innovation, in my opinion, in all of crypto is Uniswap, right? It's the automated market maker. That is a humongous innovation. And the fact that you can swap, and most people don't understand that, right? So whatever value you've got in any token on this side, I don't care if it's XRP, they're going to have a stable coin and it's going to be tradable, right? You're swappable ultimately to something on Ethereum. So at the end of the day, can you get real goods and services without paying a hefty fee? Or right now you have to go through Coinbase and get to fiat. Huzzah! Rugburn 222. What's going on? Huzzah to you, my friend. You were probably at a Renaissance festival at some point. Ease and Chill, what's going on? What? You buy low and sell high? Only buy high and sell low. Isn't that the truth? Well, a lot of people do, right? Selling the lows? Yeah, we just had someone do that. How does PDI get to $1 though? Who is going to put the capital in? Good point. Well, what people are basically saying is because Richard holds, the speculation is that Richard is the OA, and the OA holds all these tokens, right? Pulse, PulseX, Hex, all that. All that they would have to do is rotate those tokens as collateral to collateralize those pools within the maker contract, and boom, it's pegged. The problem is this. There's a bunch of people that bought like 1 billion PDI at the beginning, and what do you think those people are going to do? So even if it does quote unquote peg, it's not going to peg for very long. It's going to take time. There's going to be volatility because it's like you're going to turn people into billionaires overnight. So it's going to take time. I don't think this is an overnight thing because as soon as it's that, I mean, tons of value go out. So if you're somebody that's putting in that value, you have to recognize, well, you're only as good right now, at least. You're only as good as the bridged over value. Think about this. Let's say, PDI went to $1 and I have $1 billion. Well, how do you get that back over the bridge? You have to have $1 billion, right? What are you going to sell to? No one's going to give you $1 billion for your PDI, right? You're going to have a liquidity pool with PDI and regular DAI, and there's only so much there. So this is a long-term thing. So people getting all excited about, so I'm going to be rich. Yeah, you're going to be rich on paper. Archie, what's going on? Good to see a Firestarter. Richard is so ahead of the curve regarding Bitcoin, a vertically aligned ecosystem, and everything else. No one else, I bet, for freedom in the building and the infrastructure for an alternative system. Amen. Firestarter, good to see you, man. There you go. Free Ian Freeman. Danny Miller, the head of the boss man, the King Kamehameha of the Texas Nationalist Movement. Great to see you, my friend. Magnus, a little late for this one. It's all right. Thanks for reporting on the PDI to $1 narrative. It's up 8.6x. Yeah. It's a story because at the end of the day, that's how do you find out about things? Narrative. Finbear, what's going on, man? Good to see you, Magnus. I'm behind catching up, but agree with everything you said in answer to my question. Awesome. Russ. And that's the cool thing. I mean, think about this. Texan, where's it at? Well, the guy who's the head, the CEO, the president, the King Kamehameha of the Texas Nationalist Movement is in the chat, right? And, at the end of the day, we're just getting started. I mean, just wait. We got obviously January 20th coming up. We're going to have changes that are happening. Hopefully we can get ourselves out of some of these wars. But we'll see. But we still have work to do. It's been a while. Yeah, it has been a while. Thanks so much. This is good for me. It's kind of therapy for me as well. Back and emaciated. What's going on? Anders is here. Even Pharaoh's slaves paid less in taxes back in the day than we do now. Hey, that's a good point. That is a good point. Checks my pulse. What's going on? Let's see here. The greatest community leader holding the flag for Pulse Chain. Thank you, Heartbeat, sir. Yeah, Richard Hart is the man. I'm super excited for him to be back, man. Imagine just like the collective exhale that's going to be this SEC case being, dismissed. And it's like, all right, let's move forward together. I mean, folks, I just want to remind you, I was here for the last bull run. And I remember those days when it went up 40%. And I literally took screenshots on my phone and sent it to my buddy. I'm like, it's up 40%. Those are the days. And that happened for like 5 months. It's crazy, right? Remember the floor is lava, right? And Hex is the only thing that's up. You have to have resources and money, but there's a strategy. How do people build a token? You don't build a token by just having good tokenomics. You build a token because you got a bunch of liquidity and you are strategic with that liquidity, period, end of sentence. I mean, look at Axes. Axes knows this 100%. Look at this. I mean, Richard Hart, he invented this, right? Managing and protecting price. You have to have money to make money. Without liquidity and without the management of liquidity, you don't have these kind of crazy runs in crypto. So if you think you're going to just create a coin because you got some better narrative or you got some story to tell people, without money, you don't make money. Without having, or at least benefactors who have a lot of money who understand how to manage liquidity, you don't have anything. You just got some code, and good luck to you. And maybe a doggy photo. Drakes, what's going on, man? X-Force 1. All right, we got through the chat. Thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. This Crypto Heartbeat. I really appreciate you. Daniel Miller, always with the last comment. Should we start referring to you as speaker-elect, dude? There's a story right there. You know what, Daniel? I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna wait for your reply. Will you come back on Crypto Heartbeat and give us an update on what's going on in Texas politics? Would you be willing to do that? I'm gonna wait for your reply in the chat. Let's see if he replies. I might be here for a long time. All right, Daniel, I'm waiting for you. I'm just going to sit here and wait. I'm going to say hello to Jay Pond here. What's up? And Drix again, because I'm a big fan of Drix. Folks, I hope you're excited about the Christmas season that's coming up here, the holidays. Hope you're going to spend some time with people you care about. I encourage you to make something for someone this year. Make something yourself. All right. Did Daniel Miller say he would do it? Daniel, I'm waiting for you, buddy. No, that's so true. Remember that back in 17? Yes, Anthony, while we wait. Hey, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks, Anthony, for being here. If you're new, say hello. 244 people on 3 platforms. This is incredible. It's a huge encouragement to me. But, folks, I'm just going to answer for Daniel because he's holding out on me. Oh, here it is. Absolutely said, will you do my podcast? I've been waiting for you to ask. It would be nothing would make me happier than to be on your podcast. Daniel is a pro, folks. So Daniel, let's do it. Let's do it. I'm open to, heck, I could do it tomorrow if you want. Anytime next week. I'm going to have a lot of time here with the holidays. I kind of like this time of year because everything else kind of slows down. I don't know if it's like that for you. And I really like that week between, Christmas and New Year's. I really like that time. And so this is kind of a time, do some stuff. But Daniel Miller, that is awesome. It's an encouragement to me. I would love to be on your podcast. I would love for you to be on as soon as humanly possible. I'll text you. Let's do that. Folks, congratulations if you made it through the bear market. You're out. This is the bull run, right? We're beginning this. Do not worry. I encourage you to actually just like do something, forget about this stuff. I mean, obviously DCA, make sure you're in the market, but there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that you're not aware of that could be absolutely just transformative. But I think one of the biggest things is hearing from Richard again and having that leadership. It's been a huge vacuum. And now that things are starting to pick up, and I think after obviously the change in administration, we're going to see there's going to be a lot of data points, right? Just like I brought up the one about Roger Ver being on Tucker Carlson. All of this stuff that's been done in darkness, all of the things that we've done, and I think it's going to be unbelievable. I mean, I even hesitate to say it, but we're going to understand who killed JFK. You already know who it is, and so do I. That's been happening since we dropped the bomb. So since World War II, 3-letter agencies have literally gone across the world, toppled regimes to try to basically control and take. This imperialistic approach that we've taken over these years, that we thought we had a corner on when the internet came out, ultimately is failing. And so all of these things that were done in darkness that are absolutely morally reprehensible are going to be exposed. And we're going to realize, it's almost like being little kids and you realize that your parents are axe murderers. That's what's going to happen to people in the States. And they're going to realize, oh, we've been out there doing all of this stuff. And it's literally, I mean, there are evil people. They're evil people. And so a lot of this stuff is going to be exposed and you're going to realize it. And it's going to probably make you disgusted as me. But folks, we have an opportunity this next generation for us to reimagine what a future of living together looks like, if you will. And I'm excited that we would have an opportunity within a financial system that gets separated from that controlling power. And that's the real hope and promise of all this stuff, is that we actually get a shot to do it together without centralized players, without centralized planners, without middlemen, without counterparty risk, and that we can do it in a way that is considerate of one another in community. Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse. We will catch you next time. We got Right Side Up on Friday. Take care of yourself and do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody.